This is a story about a great Christmas story. And like any great Christmas story, the story takes me back to the happiest days of my childhood, makes me think about my family, and it reminds me of the most important things of the season. The story is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. See, for my family, listening to that book is one of our holiday traditions. It goes hand in hand with yet another holiday tradition, a very, very long drive to my grandparents' house. My dad, mom, me, and two sisters in a cramped car for more than 36 hours. Mom did her best with the situation. She always called it our adventure. Never 2 days of driving in bad weather to visit people who still blamed her for making her son move so far away. No. Like she did with everything, Mom made the best of it. She would pack snacks and mark restaurants on the map. She'd bring travel games and books, and she would be the one who started the license plate game, or I Spy. She would also stop at the library and pick up some books on tape. It was on one of these long drives, very late one night, that a small miracle occurred. I was allowed to sit in the front seat. I always had the worst seat in the car. If there was a cramped, lumpy, airless corner in a vehicle, that's where I would be for the ride. On the night of this miracle, my mom was done driving for the night and wanted to sleep in the back. Being the only one of the kids still awake, my dad asked if I would like to ride up front so Mom could get in the back and get some rest. Dad and I drove in silence for a while. Whenever I started talking, he would put his fingers to his lips and point a thumb at the back seat. Now that I have kids of my own, I know that Dad's plan was just to wait me out, and I would fall asleep eventually. Now that I have kids of my own, I know that they only sleep when you need them awake, and the more you need them to sleep, the longer they stay awake. Sitting in the front was just too exciting. I asked Dad about the signs we passed. I asked him if he was watching out for deer, like the sign said. I asked him if he was watching out for moose, like the other sign said. I asked him if he had ever seen a sign that said watch out for moose and deer. I thought I was being helpful. Now that I'm a parent, I know that nothing is less helpful than a child that is trying to be helpful. After 30 minutes or so, my dad asked me to reach under the seat and grab one of the books on tape. I remember picking through the plastic cases to find something we both liked. It was mostly little kid stuff. But when I read the title The Hobbit, my dad smiled and grabbed the cassette out of my hand, saying it was his favorite, and it was the first real book he had ever read. He put in the first of the 6 tapes and told me that if I felt sleepy, I could just close my eyes and he would wake me up when we stopped for breakfast. Now that I have kids of my own, I know what he meant was, please, go to sleep. But I never did. I stayed awake for the rest of the night, including the full 3 hours and 35-minute unabridged story. From the Hobbit hole in the Shire all the way to the Lonely Mountain and back again. As each side ended, Dad would whisper, "Are you still awake?" And when I answered yes, he would recap the storyline to make sure I was able to follow along. And I had never seen my dad so excited about a book. After the chapter called Roast Mutton, Dad paused before putting in the second tape. He made sure I understood the simple brilliance of keeping the trolls arguing until the sun came up and turned them all into stone. My favorite chapter was Riddles in the Dark, when Bilbo and Gollum played their deadly game of riddles. Dad paused the tape each time to give me a chance to answer. I never got a single one of them, but Dad always gave me a chance to try and figure it out before he would press play again. I remember being so impressed with the answers each time. When Gollum guessed teeth or Bilbo answered wind, it just didn't occur to me that Tolkien was making the story up. Even now, it kind of seems like the author is simply telling us what happened a long time ago. It always seems like it's coming from some long-forgotten truth instead of a deep and fruitful imagination. I remember my dad, his deep voice as he whispered about the next part of the story before flipping over the tape. The excitement in his face when he talked about the Battle of the 5 Armies. The way he tried to sound like the English narrator when he said names like Gandalf and Gloin. I remember the only time that night when he stopped the tape, it was to go back and listen to his favorite part of the story. It was the description of the dragon. My dad keeping one hand on the wheel while rewinding the cassette so we could hear Smaug boasting to the little hobbit. When the tapes were all done, when chapter 19 was finished, when Bilbo had made his way back to Bag End, my dad and I stayed up talking till the sun came up. Dad basically told me the entire story of The Lord of the Rings, while occasionally telling me that if Mom saw I was still awake, we were both going to get in trouble. But it never happened. When we stopped for breakfast, everyone in the back seat assumed I had been asleep like them, but I hadn't. I had been with my dad to Middle-earth. We had gone on an adventure together. When we stopped for breakfast, I think a little sleep deprivation had kicked in, and I think it was quickly apparent to my mom. Dad and I spent the entire breakfast saying good morning to each other over and over again, trying to sound like Bilbo and Gandalf when they meet at the very beginning of the book. Good morning, I'll have the pancakes. Good morning, pass the toast. Good morning, can I have some juice? Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. We kept saying good morning until my mom had had enough. She told us to stop. We laughed and did it more. I think that's why it stuck. We said good morning because it was funny, but most important to me, no one else knew what we were talking about or why it made us laugh so hard. We listened to the story the next night, both nights on the return journey, and several times each trip in the following years. Now, my kids and I have read the book together, but it was never the same as when me and my dad listened to those old cassettes in the family station wagon. The darkness outside, always just beyond the reach of the headlights. His hands on the steering wheel looking impossibly large, and the quiet hiss of the tape whenever the narrator took a pause. It was magic. A boy, his father, and the quest to reclaim the kingdom of Erebor. And that's why I'm recording this. I hope you hear it like I did, just you and your dad. The two of you together to defeat the dragon, avenge a fallen king, and reclaim what is yours. Merry Christmas, grandson. Chapter 1, An Unexpected Party. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole.